It is the 5th anniversary of Membership Academy, and you guys know what that means. It is time to welcome once again the one and only Callie Willows onto the Membership Guys podcast.
Woohoo! My annual being brought out of the cupboard and allowed onto the podcast.
Yes, this is your annual cameo, and as we do every single year, we are going to look back at the past 12 months of Membership Academy, the Membership Guys, and what's gone on in our business. And unless you've been hiding under a rock, you'll know it's been an eventful 12 months, so we've got a lot to get into, and we're going to dive in just a sec.
You're listening to the Membership Guys podcast, bringing you proven, practical tips and advice from the leading experts on growing a successful membership business each and every week. And now, here's your host, Mike Morrison.
All right, so this is episode 272 of the Membership Guys podcast, where myself and the one and only Callie Willows will be taking a look back at the last 12 months in our business, what worked, what hasn't worked, what mistakes or lessons have been encountered, and how larger world events have impacted our business.
Yeah, and if you listen to last year's roundup, we actually left off on a bit of a cliffhanger because our 4th anniversary fell about 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks in fact, before our first live conference, Retain Live, which was a 2-day conference that we were putting on here in Newcastle for membership site owners from around the world.
Yeah, and this was the very first time we'd done anything of that nature. We never ran this sort of live event before. We'd done little workshops and little mastermind events, but never a big 2-day conference where we're getting people to come from all over the world. And we already talked on the last anniversary episode 12 months ago about just how much work went into that and how much more attention went into that. And indeed, if you listen to the podcast regularly, we did follow up with some dedicated episodes about the event. It's fair to say that Retain Live dominated the start of our 5th year because August really was when things ramped up. Things went crazy in the weeks building up to the event. We worked ourselves to the bone.
We did. We were pretty exhausted by the time Retain actually came around, I think. We were just looking forward to sleeping once it was over.
Yeah, it was an odd flashback to some of those earlier days of kind of freelancing or just getting started in business where you were getting up, we were getting up at crazy early in the morning and working through till the small hours of the next day, and it was a grind. It's fair to say it's the hardest we've worked in a long time.
Yeah, anybody who's an Academy member or follows us regularly will know, we work hard, but we like to work hard as little as possible.
Yeah.
And basically enjoy life. So this was harder work than we'd been used to for a long time.
It was a shock to the system, but it was worth it. It's fair to say we knocked it out of the park, if I say so myself. And it's not just me who says it. The feedback we got was just remarkable for a first-time event in particular. I think, was it 95%?
98% of people said they would come back, which was awesome.
Yeah.
We were really pleased with the feedback that we got, and it did make it all worthwhile in the end. We loved that everybody enjoyed it and thought it was a great event. So.
Yeah, definitely. And after the event was done, everyone that we came across was asking the same question: when can they buy tickets for next year? Retain 2020. Now, when we were originally planning the event, we did have in mind that it would be a regular thing. So we bought Retain 2019, Retain 2020, Retain 2021, just assuming we were going to do it every year. But we were so burned out, I think, in the run-up to running the event in 2019, that we just decided that wasn't going to happen. We just decided, you know what, we'll get this out of the way because it had become such an albatross. It was such hard work and so distracting from the core business that we just wanted to get it done, get it out the way, and forget about this idea of doing live events. Honestly, we were in a place where we were kind of regretting ever committing to do this in the first place.
Yeah, I'm not ashamed to say there were times in the run-up where I was crying a little bit and going, why on earth did we decide
Why
to do
are we doing this?
And a lot of that was pressure we put on ourselves to make it as perfect as we could, and to, we were doing a lot of it ourselves, even though we had an event company and things. Mike and I are a little bit on the perfectionist side, although we try and not be. So, we definitely put a lot of stress on ourselves with it, but as soon as we got on the stage that first day, we remembered why we were doing it, and just being able to look out and see all the Academy members and non-Academy members that had made the trip from all around the world and were there to learn and support us and connect with each other. That was awesome. It made it all totally worthwhile.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think midway through the event, so back in our hotel room at the end of day one, we had that kind of almost panicked conversation. So we decided going into it, we're never going to do this again, right? Because the build up, the work involved was just not what we wanted to do. But then the event, day one of the event, and the kickoff party we did was so incredible, and was such a buzz, such a rush, that our outlook started to change. So we had that panicked discussion in the hotel room. Okay, well, do we want to do this again? And if we want to do this again, do we want to make the announcement? Should we quickly speak to the venue and see if we can lock in a time? So we were trying to make that big decision as the car was moving, essentially. And we decided that if we did it again, it would likely be every other year. So the next one would be 2021, simply because A, the work involved, B, the fact that we were never doing this to make money. Every single dollar or pound in profit that we found ourselves making on the event, we reinvested into adding little fun touches, or, booking an ice cream cart to come and stuff like that. And so we, that changes the strategy and the approach. It's if you're doing something kind of just for the fun of it, for the community building side of it, then, the commitment for how much you need to do every year to make that happen just didn't make sense. So we thought, okay, it'll be every 2 years. So the next one would be 2021. In hindsight,
that worked out quite well.
Yeah, we've
given
dodged,
how the events have gone this year.
Yeah, we dodged a bullet because had we committed to being retained 2020, we'd be screwed. Because of obviously what's going on in the world with the pandemic and with everything. Like, we wouldn't be able to do it. We'd have had to cancel. We'd need to do it virtually and all that sort of stuff. And frankly, we've got a lot of friends who run live events. People like Chris Ducker with his Youpreneur Summit. People like Andrew and Pete with Atomicon. People like Janet Murray, who runs Content Live. And we know that these guys have had to work their butts off to adapt and adjust to what's been going on in the world. And seeing how quickly plans for things like live events can fall apart, it does kind of make it a little less likely that we would do another Retain Live conference in the foreseeable future. Because Lord only knows how long it's going to take before you can have the confidence to put on an event, before audiences will have the confidence and the comfort level to attend events like this one. So who knows what the future holds, but for now there's no plans for another Retain Live event. We might do other things, other types of events. We might do other virtual things, stuff like Memberpalooza is a little looser, a little less formal because it's more just a celebratory thing, but we might do some other fun stuff to bring.
We've got some ideas. But but it's definitely a shame because it was a great event, and by the end we were kind of totally high on the experience and how great it was just having so many membership site owners together.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm kind of glad that if it is the only one that we ever do, that it was good and we can be proud of it and say, actually, yeah, we put our all into that event.
Yeah, part of you does, because we did nail it. We really, really did nail it.
There's always things you can improve.
There's always little things you can improve, but again, we exceeded our own high expectations. And so there's always the temptation to not mess with that. you know,
one-hit wonder.
Yeah, just, you know what? Just be a one-hit wonder. We can be the Rick Astley of the conference world, you know. But yeah, who knows what the future holds? But for now, there's no plans. A big part of the reasoning for that as well, it's not just the pandemic and all that, is that if we're being completely honest, I feel like we took our eyes off the ball with Membership Academy.
Yeah, and when we say that, it's not a case of we did anything wrong in the academy, we let things slide. You know, we were still in the community every day, we were still producing content, we were still giving our academy members as much as we could, but we weren't innovating and trying new things the way that we usually like to do. So normally every year we try and mix things up, we try new things, we kind of get creative with content and things like that, or changes to the academy and features, and we didn't do that in 2019 particularly because we were so focused on Retain. So, you know, we were distracted. We weren't as kind of...
We weren't as on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, within our business, and we said this all along, the academy is always at the heart of it. It's always top of our list, our main focus. And when we were planning Retain, that's the first time in 5 years that hasn't been the case. Yeah. And so, you know, if you were to ask our academy members during that time whether they'd felt like their experience as a member had changed, they probably wouldn't have even noticed that we hadn't been on it, but we knew. And we knew that there were a few things, not necessarily with the academy, but a few things with the membership guys, where we'd planned certain things in our content strategy, but they got shelved because we knew we couldn't focus on them. So doing more with video, doing more around Facebook Live, doing something fun like this around the anniversaries and stuff. And some of the bigger plans that we had for the academy and for other aspects of the business, again, we were putting those aside, or, you know, we were making certain decisions based on what was going to be essentially best for the conference, as opposed to what's going to be best for the membership. So we're probably being a little too hard on ourselves, but I think it's that thing when you know you're not firing on all cylinders on the thing that's meant to be your main focus, which for us is the academy and the membership guys brand. When you're aware of that, then that adds to the anxiety. That becomes a little niggle in the back of your brain that builds and builds and builds, and it has a knock-on effect on anything else. And it's the first time really in 5 years where we have had something dominate our time to the extent that the academy, it didn't become an afterthought, but it became, for a period, it was deprioritized.
Yeah, and where we had to constantly be thinking, well, I want to do this, but we'll have to wait until after Retain and things. And actually, I don't think either of us factored in how exhausted we would be after Retain. So even then, the things that we'd kind of said, okay, well, we'll do this in October after Retain's done and things, it actually took us quite a long time to recover from Retain, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember much of the 2 months after Retain, like the bandwidth that something like that takes and the recovery time that it takes, especially for two introverts like us, but also just catching up on sleep and just kind of depressuring after something of that kind of scale. But the good thing is, even when we weren't at our best, there was a lot of momentum that came off the back of running Retain that kind of carried the membership for us during that period where we weren't firing on all cylinders, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think it was great because Retain, even though only a tiny portion of our members were able to make it live, it did create a lot of buzz in our community. We had members who were at Retain who actually formed mini mastermind groups inside the community afterwards and are still going strong to this day. And of course, we had the recordings of Retain as well. So we gradually put those recordings into the academy as well, so that everybody who couldn't be there got the value of kind of those event sessions as well. And yeah, I think that was really popular with members being able to still see those event sessions even though they couldn't make it there live.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, again, because during the time when we were working on Retain, we didn't have as much time committed to producing new content for the academy, those recordings and being able to repurpose the event material into membership content helped us, I don't want to say paper over the cracks, but certainly helped us make up what we felt was a shortfall in terms of our commitment to the membership.
Maybe it's best to say it gave us a little bit of breathing room in that time where we did need to decompress a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it wasn't just Retain. 2019 was a very busy year, especially the back half of the year. In addition to Retain Live, we just completed a big rebrand in July 2019, which was a massive undertaking. The name of Membership Academy changed from Member Site Academy to Membership Academy. Finally, 4 years in, which brought with it all sorts of extra kind of workload and logistics to take care of. We also were real hard at work in kind of August, September time on the online membership industry report, which was released just before Retain, actually, because we kind of really crunched to get that released before the event so we could include some of the findings. It's the first report of its kind for the online membership business space that has benchmarks, it has stats. If you've not seen it, you can head to membershipbenchmarks.com and you can download for free. You don't even need an email address. And that we were real proud of that, because this marketplace, this industry, hasn't had good data, good stats or anything like that to work from.
Yeah, and it's been one of our biggest frustrations that, when people say to us, well, what's the average churn rate? What's the average income? Things like that, we're pretty much just guesstimating. But now we don't need to, because we've got actual facts from our audience on how their memberships are doing. Yeah,
and having that data it's been really, really valuable for us in our content creation, in being able to fill in some of the gaps in kind of our wider audience's understanding of the membership world over the last 12 months since we released that report. So that, again, it's been a big thing that we were real proud of. But again, it was something that was a lot of work, all kind of piling up. And at the same time, we were also hard at work at writing our second book, Behind the Membership, which, again, the one and only Callie Willows is largely responsible for. It's derived from her very popular podcast series Behind the Membership, and we turned it into a book. And again, this was at the same time as Retain, the same time as the rebrand, the same time as the online membership industry report. So all of these are things we're really, really proud of, but they were all things that took our attention away from the academy. So once we'd kind of decompressed and we'd gotten all these other little side projects out of the way, the awareness that we hadn't been performing how we wanted to be within the academy forced us to refocus. It forced us to swing back and think, okay, we need to give the academy some love. We need to do all these great things that we've been wanting to do that we've had to kind of put aside, thinking about what comes next, where the big priorities are, what we should be concentrating on to best serve our members. So at the turn of the year, we set aside a big chunk of time, pretty much the entirety of January. We always like to do big planning sessions in January because, it's a new year, new beginnings, all of that stuff. We set aside almost the whole month for high-level planning, mapping out the strategy, completely revisiting our academy content. We almost looked at it as, okay, if we were just launching the academy today and we had nothing, what would it have? So we tried to reimagine it from the ground up. And we put together some great plans. Yeah. We put together fantastic plans, fantastic strategy. We had the whole year mapped out. And come February, we were raring to go. And then the wheels came off.
Yeah. A little thing called coronavirus started happening.
Yes.
Yeah. And actually before that, before kind of coronavirus and what actually hit the fan in March, we were actually sick for the entirety of February. We went to Houston for a weekend and we came home and we were both ridiculously ill. Mike in particular, I've never seen as ill. Yeah. And I couldn't breathe unless I was sitting up.
Callie was literally having to, couldn't sleep in bed, had to sleep upright in a chair because otherwise, if Callie laid down, she couldn't breathe. So we were ill. We were ill, and I'm pretty sure I know which person it was on the plane on the way back, because I remember them coughing.
And you were getting really annoyed.
Really annoyed.
But yeah, so whilst we haven't been able to get tested to know if it was actually coronavirus or not, we're both kind of sure that it was.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if it wasn't, because we were sidelined for pretty much an entire month.
I still don't feel 100% if I'm honest.
Yeah, from kind of a week or so after we got back from that trip. We were both like, we've had flu, we've had colds, we've had illnesses and sicknesses before, but this was something different. This was something else. And
it's the first time in 5 years where we've actually had to completely cancel an academy Q&A call.
Like we don't cancel stuff wherever we can, but we had to clear the decks. We couldn't do anything. So all these big plans that we were ready to get started with in February didn't happen. So we got sick, and then the world got sick.
Yeah. It was a trying time, and I think, we want to be honest here and say that actually March, when things were kicking off, it was our worst month ever in terms of churn for the academy, in terms of actually being the first time in 5 years that we lost more members than we gained, and not by a little, by a lot as well. So I think even though, we're lucky, we've got a lot of members, we've got a lot of ledge to walk back on, but you still get that anxiety when you see the numbers going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and that is where we're obviously grateful for the type of business model that the Membership Academy is, and of course the business model that we teach, because you are on much more stable footing. So while you obviously don't want to lose chunks of your member base, you're better positioned to absorb that than a lot of people during this time, unfortunately, were in. And so it was, we certainly weren't immune to that initial impact in March, when lockdowns in different countries came in, when suddenly, people were facing so much uncertainty, and they didn't know like whether their jobs would be safe, whether their business would survive it. That kind of month of just complete uncertainty, we felt the brunt of that. And to be honest, we weren't even thinking about it. We weren't thinking about our bottom line, about our business, because we know that bad times have an expiration date, right? And so we just wanted to make sure that we were doing whatever we could, or kind of what little we can do, we were trying to do, to best serve our audience. And even if that meant encouraging people to put their subscriptions on hold with us, then, we were actively telling people, listen, of all the things you need to take care of right now, paying us $49 for the Membership Academy should not be top of your list. So pause your subscription. We'll still be here when you come back. And I'm glad that we were in a position to be able to do that, and to absorb the financial hit that it meant.
Yeah, definitely, because I think as soon as it started affecting us, we knew it would be affecting our members too.
Yeah.
We have members all around the world, as Mike said. We've got members in lots of different markets and niches, a lot of which were going to be initially at least hard hit by the circumstances.
Yeah.
So we did want to make it as easy as possible for people to pause their accounts. And so the majority of that churn that we mentioned in it being our worst month was actually people pausing as opposed to cancelling.
Yeah. And I mean, technically, this is the thing, technically if someone pauses their subscription, they're still members, but you still kind of count them as it's a subscription that is lost, right? But again, to be honest, that was a further thing for our minds, because we knew that it would bounce back. We just wanted to make sure that if there was something we could be doing for people, we were. So, we invested more time and resources and energy into showing up in more places. So we started doing the Facebook Lives and the YouTube videos, just dispensing advice freely. We already put out a lot of free content and resources, but we kind of doubled down on our efforts to do that in more places. We did little things like making our book member machine free to everyone, because essentially it's a step-by-step manual for someone who needs to get a membership up in 30 days, which we kind of figured if someone's pivoting their business, we want to get this in their hands, and you know what, the $4 that we make on each book sale is just like, we don't need that, so we made it just a free download. Again, we weren't even taking people's email addresses just to get it to people. It's one of those things where it felt like a really small, insignificant thing, but we had well over 1,000 people download it, and just the feedback from people being able to actually utilize that just let us know that while it was a little thing, it was something that was useful to people and helped, you know, at least a few of them navigate the situation. Yeah,
and we tried to be more available to, like, Academy members all know we're in the community every day. We're as supportive and available as we possibly can be, but we really tried to take that even a step further during this situation, especially when we started, by doing more live calls, member mixers, which isn't something we typically were doing in the Academy. Just trying to be there, creating content about what people could actually do to handle the situation and things as well. So really just trying to do as much as possible as we could to support people in what's a difficult time.
Yeah, because again, you know, as I said before, bad times have an expiration date, and memberships are always all about the long term. So, you know, whatever you can do to help your members in the long term will come back. It'll pay dividends, even if you're looking at things from a purely commercial dollars and cents point of view. There is a financial return on investment in being a good servant to your community and to your audience. They'll repay you for it in the long run. And once things had kind of settled, because that March there was so much uncertainty. I think it's not, obviously, we're not out of the woods yet with the pandemic, and a lot of people are still suffering from it. But that first month or so was just such an unknowable period of time, which certainly seemed to settle down a bit come kind of April.
Yeah.
And when that happened, the Academy bounced back in a really big way. Once that initial craziness started to settle, and that uncertainty kind of abated, then we saw a lot of the people who would pause their subscriptions, maybe kind of out of precautionary measures, coming back to us. We had a lot of new people who had kind of been forced by the situation into rethinking what they want their business to be, into taking that leap into self-employment because their job maybe wasn't as safe or secure as they thought that it was. And that led to member numbers and new signups just kind of shooting back up again. In fact, higher than before.
Yeah, I would say actually each month of the last 4 or 5 months has actually been a new record for us in terms of growth and member numbers and things like that. So, you know, we had that terrible month, and then month. Touch wood, touch everything. Everything's continued to rebound and be even better than it was before.
Yeah, and obviously...
And it feels a bit wrong saying that, to be honest, because, you know, there is a certain, I'm sure it's not just me, an element of guilt when you're doing okay, when other people, you know, are still struggling.
But by the same token, we know from our community that what we've been trying to do for them has helped them. So it is that thing of, you can't feel guilty about succeeding at helping other people navigate what's going on.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just because we're English.
Yeah.
Because we don't, like, English people traditionally, we don't talk about money or success or anything like that. It's not the British way of doing things. So some of that will have been driven by the circumstances, like we said, people who had kind of paused or left temporarily coming back, or people having that new motivation to move into the membership world. But also during this period, as we said, in our quest to ensure that we turned up for people in as many places as we could, that then had a knock-on effect to our reach. So obviously we started doing more on YouTube, we started doing more on Facebook Live, so we were just naturally reaching more people. We started publishing more content on our blog, which meant Google had more to feed on, which meant we got increased traffic. So everything had its knock-on effect, which obviously played into being able to rebound with the Academy around kind of April, May time, and the exponential growth thereafter. And that extra focus on kind of the content, the marketing side. Again, it's been a big part of the first portion of this year. We said we had those big plans in January that we kind of had to not throw out, but accept the reality that
postpone.
We have to postpone this stuff because like the world is ending. But the stuff we did in its place, doing more with video, my little pandemic project of up-leveling our video setup, our live streaming capabilities and resources. Again, all of that is now stuff that is kind of going to pay off longer term, and we've already seen some great results because we create a lot of video content. We live stream a lot too, with things like our monthly Q&As. So that investment in kicking our video up a notch is something we've been very happy with. Especially when you consider like some of our earliest live videos, the quality was terrible. Like we were just using like a low quality webcam. We were broadcasting over YouTube live, so we just looked like potatoes. Like
I mean, still look like potatoes, but we were brightly lit potatoes back then.
So yeah, again, it's just been nice that even while everything's been going on, we've been able to kick things up a notch in other areas that maybe weren't a priority at the start of the year, but that we've been able to focus on, not just because it looks better, it looks good, but also removes barriers, it removes excuses for us to be able to just jump on a live call. If we've got something to say, we can just rock up into our recording room, everything is set up, plug the cable in, press go, and we're streaming at a higher quality than we'd ever been able to do before, whether it's for live videos or pre-recorded videos. We've had a separate video studio for a while, but not only is the equipment in our new setup better, with the old setup, we used to have to switch between the stuff we used for live streaming and the stuff we used for recording videos. And when you're not in the mood, when you're not motivated, that can be enough of having to mess around, enough of an inconvenience for you to just say, oh, you know what, let's just leave this till next week. And there's been a few times in the past where we planned to do like batch video recordings. We were going to get started on YouTube a year or so ago properly.
YouTube.
We've been meaning to get started properly on YouTube for like 5 years. Yeah. But a year or so ago, we planned out essentially a 10-part video series, and we were going to batch record them all in a day. And literally, I think the day came and we were like, oh, you know what? Let's just postpone this, because it was easier to just not do it. Whereas now, we have no excuse. We come in within 2 minutes, we're good to go and we're ready to go. So again, that's a really important kind of upgrade for us, not just for the quality to be significantly better, but just so we have to do a lot less to have quality video content.
Yeah, and I think when not dealing with the apocalypse, leveling up on quality has kind of been the name of the game for us this year, both up till now and for the rest of the year as well. And that includes membership content too. Yeah,
definitely. You know, once we've kind of settled into the new normal, I hate that term, but you know, we were actually then able to revisit those plans that we'd made in January. Some of them we changed our thinking on, but you know, it was nice to be able to kind of almost get back on track with things. And the core focus of those plans was our membership content, changing up our entire approach. Again, as I've said, when we started looking at what we wanted to do with the Academy, we took it from a standpoint of, if we were starting today from scratch, without thinking about, okay, we've already got this course or we've already got this feature, what would the content look like? How would the courses be structured? What would be priority topics to cover? And that's kind of led to a total change up of our approach, the style of our courses, and just really stepping things up and doubling down on making everything as practical and as actionable as possible. Because admittedly, with some of our earlier courses, we were still finding our feet as educators. You know, when we were consulting for membership owners, when we were partnering with other membership businesses back in the day when we ran the agency before we started the Academy, We would have a hand in everything except the content.
Yeah, we did the marketing, the strategy, the tech, retention tactics, but they did the content. And that was what they brought to the table. So we were new to that when we started the academy. Me particularly, I think, you'd done podcasts and radio stuff before, so you were better at kind of sitting down and recording something.
Yeah, I'd done podcasting and probably more on kind of the blogging and even the video front. If you remember, I used to shoot those videos in the kitchen of the first kind of we can't really call it an apartment that we lived in. It was a converted garage that we lived in. So, but even then, like designing courses and stuff like that was the bit that we were always hands off with when it came to working with our clients. So we were still finding our feet as educators in those early days of the academy. And I think that shows in some of the really early courses that we created. Because at times, I think maybe we overcompensated because we were finding our feet as educators, and we perhaps focused a little too much on trying to make sure we covered every possible base, every question, every situation, every potential student's personal approach to a particular topic. We were trying to cover everything and almost approaching it like we wanted to teach people everything that they could do rather than just getting laser focused and telling them what they should do.
Yeah.
And some of that was a confidence thing.
Yeah, definitely some of it was a confidence thing. And it took me a long time to get confident on courses and recording content at all, because it is that thing where, and I know a lot of our members can relate to this, where you know what you know, but it's difficult to kind of decide what your members need to know from that. It's the kind of what's essential versus what's nice to know.
Yeah.
And I think it's taken me especially a while to kind of get into my head that just because I know something doesn't mean that I need to tell everybody else that as well.
Yeah.
And condensing it down to just the essentials. This is what's going to get you the best results.
Yeah, definitely. And it's that difference between teaching someone everything they could do and teaching them what they should do, and having the confidence in your viewpoint and the strategy you're teaching and the approach that you're teaching as being what is best for the student based on the knowledge and the experience that you bring to the table, which after all is what they're looking to tap into. And so we've certainly had we've always felt there was a little bit of imbalance. And the great thing is, because we're so present within the academy, any gaps like that or any clarification that people need to kind of whittle down the here's what you could do into here's what you should do. We have the community for that. We have the Q&As for that. That helped us to essentially address that almost shortcoming.
Yeah, and we say that, but there's a lot of great stuff in the academy, content-wise. Don't get us wrong.
Totally.
It's just that if we were starting again now, we would have done it from a more practical, I think is the best way of putting it, a more practical point of view, a more actionable point of view. And again,
predominantly with the earlier stuff, like the courses that we created in 2015. Wow, 2015. And, setting that aside, I mean, courses that we created 5 years ago are due a replacement, right? So a big part of our plans for now, plans going forward, center around creating new material. So we've been creating new courses that are they're just a whole different standard. The feedback that we've had on them has just been incredible. We're also going back and creating new versions of some of our older courses too. We've also started doing bi-monthly membership masterclass sessions. So these are real deep dive, high level tactical workshops where we're teaching people a specific strategy, but we're also giving them everything that they need to implement. So giving them email copy. So the swipe files where they can copy and paste the emails for a particular campaign, creating pre-made page templates for WordPress page builders like Divi and Thrive and Elementor for like the sales pages or pages we did a workshop on a online challenge funnel, where again we just gave people the page templates for the challenge itself, the sign up pages. So again, this is part of that big doubling down on helping people get things implemented as quickly and as effectively as possible, and just being clear and kind of saying, this is what you should do. This is the approach we advocate. Follow the path, follow the plan. Here's all the resources you need to help you get there. And it's paying off.
Yeah, I think those masterclasses have been hugely popular, and I love with the last one in particular, which was on Splinter products. We had people actually setting up their Splinter products while the masterclass was still going on and launching them straight away, which was awesome. Yeah,
we had people like we taught a strategy of using Splinter products to drive member sales, and we had launches of these products happening during the masterclass. I think if we needed a sign that this content was working, it's that. We also introduced the growth game plans as well, which are insanely practical.
Yeah, and actually, while we say that kind of we took our foot off the gas last year, we actually introduced these in November 2019.
Yeah,
so actually,
we snuck these in.
Yeah, so we first started releasing these in November 2019, and these are definitely practical. They step-by-step how to do specific things. So we have the churn slayer, for example, where it will help you improve your retention, the sales booster, which will help you get more sales. And these are just step by step. This is exactly what you need to do. No fluff, nothing, just the actions that you need to take and the things that you need to help take those actions.
Yeah.
And, we're very literal in our naming of things, so hopefully they're all clear and easy. So, as I said, we've got things like the churn slayer, the sales booster, the audience amplifier, all these different growth game plans to help those who already have their memberships up and running to just take things to that next level.
Yeah, and again, they are literally just us saying, do this, then do this. Don't worry about that. Ignore that. Just follow what we say step by step, and you'll get results. And so, again, a lot more practical, up to date, actionable, and a lot more on the growth front as well. And that's kind of been symbolic of the big push that we've been making on our Academy membership content strategy as part of the past 12 months. Took us a little longer to get going on it because of the pandemic, but it's in full swing now, and it's paying off. And don't get me wrong, this doubling down, this big drive in a new direction for the Academy content, it wasn't driven by negative feedback or anything like that. We've always had consistently great feedback from our members about our content. And as I said before, a big part of that is because we were able to fill in any gaps through being present in the community and through Q&As. So it's been nice to actually do this, though, because we've always known that even though members were happy with what was in the Academy, we always knew it could be more. And that, I think, is why it was frustrating when we went through that period with Retain 2019 being the priority over the Academy. That's why the frustration kept growing, because we were itching to kick things up a notch with our membership content. We just didn't have the capacity to do it. So it's been nice to get back to basics on that front and really take things up into a higher gear. And it is paying off. Course completion rates are higher. Members are taking action. They're getting results. People are sharing more wins. As we said before, we've got people on the workshops implementing as they go and launching new stuff during the workshops, which is nuts. And so, of course, we're going to be building on that over the coming, at least 12 months or so. Yeah. Something else we've done in 2020, if you weren't aware that 2020 is a bit of a strange year, then followers of the Membership Guys podcast or just the Membership Academy, this will put it over the edge for you. In 2020, was it 3 months ago? 4 months ago?
3 months.
3 months ago, we actually started a members Facebook group.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes. And I hope my tone is conveying just how odd that is for us, because if you have followed us for a while, if you've listened to pretty much any time we talk about online community on the podcast, you'll know that I hate generally, hate's maybe a strong word, I'm not a fan of using Facebook groups for the paid community side of your membership for a variety of reasons. And yet, we started one as an accompaniment to our main members forum.
Yeah, and there was a few reasons that we've done this. And first was because we have a lot of members who they love the Academy forum and they want to create that for their members, but they also know their members are on Facebook. So they've asked us about, well, can I have both? Can I have a Facebook group and an on-site community? How would that work? So part of this was us wanting to demonstrate to members how it can work, or if it can't work. And a part of it was also testing our biases. So we're very much, as we say, fans of having your community on site so that it's easy for members to access. But there definitely is that element where Facebook people are on it anyway and using it and things like that. So we wanted to test that bias a little bit and see how it would actually compare to the forum. And it's been quite interesting. It's an experiment that's still ongoing. But for listeners who are interested, at the minute, we've actually only had about less than 20% of Academy members join the Facebook group. And we've had a lot of members say that they really like the forum. They're happy just sticking with the forum. So it's kind of an interesting experiment because the majority of our members do prefer the forum. We do have, I think, about 400 people in the Facebook group at the minute. So it's not a small group, but as I said, it's less than 20% of our actual Academy active member base. So it's interesting. We're going to leave it running a bit longer to see how it goes. But we positioned it very much as kind of a social side of the Academy. So the forum was still where the actual main conversations, Q&As, things like that were going to happen, the in-depth discussion. And the Facebook group was there more for members to connect with each other and to ask quick questions and things like that. And that's worked quite well. It hasn't cannibalized on the forum activity at all, which has been great to see because that was our big concern. But the forum's still going strong. The Facebook group hasn't taken anything away from that.
No, but what it's done, we are seeing people who don't participate in the forum, they are turning up in the Facebook group because, you know, there's certainly value to having somewhere where you can kind of go for more of kind of the chit chat, more of the social side of things. So it's not setting the world alight, but it's certainly, as Callie said, it's something we're almost deliberately not forcing ourselves to do, but pushing ourselves to do so that we don't rest on our laurels with our own biases, because you have to experiment with these things, and we are kind of the crash test dummies of the membership world. And so for anyone who's kind of been considering having a foot in both camps and maybe having an online discussion forum for the more serious, more in-depth topics, and then a Facebook group for just the social, casual chit-chat, posting funny GIFs and stuff like that, then, you know, we wanted to be able to try that out and feedback. So it's not hurting anything. It's not setting the world alight, but we didn't expect it to, because again, we had no intentions for this to replace the forum. And even if this just completely flopped, having the insight to be able to share with people about it is valuable in and of itself. But at the same time, there's enough pros to it in terms of, again, kind of getting some people involved who are never going to use the forum. I think over 5 years, I could count on one hand how many people have just said they outright refuse to use an on-site forum, and they're leaving because they want a Facebook group, which is fine. It's a little odd because we were very clear on the sales page that we have a forum. So, we don't have a Facebook group. We're very clear we don't do Facebook groups. But yeah, this is all to say that it's never been a deal breaker for us having a forum rather than a Facebook group. But, if it brings some people out the woodworks, and it's not cannibalizing on the main forum, then maybe it's something that becomes a long-term thing. I think we're carrying on what was initially a 3-month experiment. We're going to be carrying that on for another few months, just to see how it goes, and probably put a little more kind of integration of the Facebook group into our onboarding. So making sure that it's clearer for people where to go, because outside of some of the initial announcements about us doing this test, it's not something we've heavily pushed. So we're going to play around with that a little bit. No doubt we'll be updating you guys here on the podcast about how the kind of the dual community strategy has played out over a longer period of time.
And it's interesting because, like, obviously we didn't start this because there was an issue with the forum. We love the forum. It gets a lot of activity. But I was expecting at least 50% of members to join the Facebook group.
I wasn't.
I thought it'd be at least 50% of people just wanting to see how we were doing it, because a lot of our members like to kind of just see how we're doing stuff. So I was expecting the uptake to be higher. And again, we're going to continue adding it into the onboarding for newer members and things like that. But it's been interesting seeing the results and kind of actually just how many people do like the forum and the forum format, and they're not just using it because that's the only option.
Yeah, this is the thing. I wasn't expecting a huge uptake. I was kind of expecting what we're getting now, like 15 to 20% of people who just love Facebook communities or just want to be part of a Facebook community as well. But when our forum gets a lot of engagement, a lot of activity, more than it should. Because remember, online memberships, we're not a fitness membership. Clearly, we're not a music membership. We're not a passion-driven topic as such. It's not a hobby. It's not a hangout and chat because I've got an hour or so to kill. It's a business topic, and so when people come into the community, by and large, they're a little more in business mode. And so the community is better suited to being that kind of study hall, office space, learning environment, as opposed to somewhere people just go to hang out, like a pub or a cafe. So when you think of it, our community does better, like our forum, gets more engagement, it gets more discussion, more posts than you would probably expect with the nature of the topic. And so I wasn't anticipating 50%, definitely not. So it's kind of meeting my expectations now, and we could probably certainly position it a little better and a little clearer for our newer members to find it. And that'll see just a little more of an uptick. But yeah, the experiment continues, but we thought we'd throw that one in there for those longer term listeners who might get a little bit of a chuckle out of the fact that, one of the like guaranteed things that we will never do, we're doing. Next thing you know, we'll be closing the doors to the membership and only opening it once a year.
Yeah, no.
That is never going to happen. But then again, we said we'd never do the Facebook group. But no, that definitely will never happen. So yeah, one more sign of just how upside down and back to front 2020 is. We started a private members Facebook group. And then, of course, the other kind of, I suppose, the thing that brings us around to right now is planning Memberpalooza. That's been the better part of the past month, is planning this Memberpalooza celebration that we held to mark the 5th anniversary of the Membership Academy. Now, as we're recording this episode, we're actually live streaming it. So to mark the 5th anniversary of Membership Academy, we threw a week-long celebration with fun and festivities. We had workshops, we had training, we had opening parties with cake and cocktail, we had contest giveaways, we had the Retain Replay, which is a full day of recorded sessions from Retain Live 2019. And actually, in fact, as I'm saying this right now, as we recorded this episode, the time of recording was part of Memberpalooza. We actually live streamed the recording of this episode a few weeks prior to when you're listening to it right now. So yeah, Memberpalooza has been a big thing for us because we knew 5 years, big milestone. We really wanted to do something special to celebrate. And we're only on day 2. But it's been fun so far. I've enjoyed the opening party. I enjoy planning this and putting it together. So this is kind of the point at which I suppose we'll pick up on next year's podcast episode. on our yearly anniversary episode, and we can kind of talk about Memberpalooza and what happened after we stopped hitting record. Because I'm talking about Memberpalooza as if it was amazing, as if it was in the past. It could all go horribly wrong over the next few days.
It could,
we don't
but
know.
it won't.
It could, but hopefully it won't. You never know. Honestly, if anything's just going to go catastrophically differently to how you think it might be, this is the year when that will happen.
That is true.
Yeah. So Memberpalooza kind of brings to an end this little 12-month recap of what's gone on within our business. But what do the next 12 months hold? What's next? What's coming up?
Well, a big thing for us, as we've said, is that up-leveling of the content, but we're also up-leveling the business in general as well. So one of the big things we're focusing on the minute, and some of you may have seen us actually starting to advertise for this, is that we're growing our team. And in fact, we can announce that we actually officially hired our first full-time employee, our head of digital content, just this week.
Yes.
So we've actually just hired somebody, and that's going to be our first full-time employee. So we're growing.
We are. We can't announce who it is just yet, but there will be some form of announcement when she takes up the role. But that the offer went out like last Friday night. So yeah, real exciting. We're also going to be advertising for a full-time in-house graphic designer. We still have a tech role that we're looking to fill too, and then likely next year, unless Callie gets the itch a little sooner, we'll be looking at least one more full-time hire, most likely a community manager. I think that's next on the wish list. So we'll mention this just in case there's someone like awesome at membership community management who's thinking, I would really love to work for a company like Membership Academy. Then hey, give us a little tinkle.
Yeah, because there's a lot of great stuff. Like, we don't want to give anything away just yet, but there's a lot of great stuff that we want to try and do with the Academy community next year, where we're really looking forward to kind of bringing somebody on board to help with that as well. Yeah,
definitely. So big stepping up for the business. Next year's anniversary episode, the recap's going to be interesting, because this is probably, I would say, the next 12 months will be the largest kind of concentrated period of business growth.
Yeah.
As we've been fortunate, we've been blessed to have enjoyed continuous year-on-year growth in terms of member size, in terms of revenue, in terms of profits, and all that sort of stuff since we began. But the business itself has always stayed kind of relatively lean, relatively nimble. We've got a team of essentially like subcontractors. We've got some people who are on retainer who essentially function as part of our active team, and we have individual kind of subcontractors that we use regularly for things like design, things like podcast editing. But apart from that, it's us two. It's me, Callie, and the cat. So that's all set to change. So the year 6 anniversary episode is going to be an interesting one to see how we navigate that journey, because it's a whole new adventure for us. Obviously, we mentioned community content production is going to be a big focus. It's not just about creating awesome member content, but just making sure that our body of work inside the academy and the roadmap and all of that is easy to follow, that cuts through to what people need to get them results, provides clarity and not overwhelm. The roadmap's a big part of that. Speaking of the roadmap, all of the great content we're creating will ultimately lead to a refreshing of the membership roadmap. The roadmap, if you're not an Academy member, that's the thing that pulls everything together within the Academy and gives people that guided pathway through our material and resources. So kind of phase 2 of our new content strategy will be that. It'll be refining the roadmap, working from the new courses and workshops we've been doing. So that's probably going to be 2021. We're focusing on that with the help of our new head of digital content. And we're also looking at what else we can offer to members in terms of that next level, like beyond the Academy.
Yeah, we have a lot of requests for kind of private coaching, or if we run masterminds and things like that. And, you know, we did have, for anybody who has listened to these previously, we previously have had a higher tier membership accelerator, which was kind of a small group mastermind combined with private coaching, which we put in hiatus actually when we started to plan retain, because we knew we wouldn't have the bandwidth for both.
We put that on pause in order to focus on the live event.
But we're feeling like now once things are underway with the new content and things like that it might be time to dust that off or bring something similar into the mix.
We've been wanting to bring Membership Accelerator back in some shape or form as that next level for people who need a little more hands-on guidance from ourselves on the strategy and the marketing side of things, retention and all that good stuff, as well as that tighter-knit core group of kind of mastermind partners, essentially. So keep an eye out for development on that, certainly over the next 12 months. Let's not say the next 2 or 3 months, because
no, definitely not this year. Definitely not this year.
We'll be bringing that back in some form. And sadly, we're also facing the reality that we'll be unlikely to travel as much next year, of course, like everyone else. We had been wanting to do a membership road trip. So every time we travel, we try and get together with members. And some of you who are listening or who are here for the live recording, we will have had the opportunity to meet up with in the UK or over in the States. And we really, really, for a long time, have been wanting to do a Membership Guys road trip where we traveled around all throughout the US, throughout the UK, maybe even Australia, getting into mainland Europe, and just host some get-togethers, maybe some mastermind events, some workshops. We would have loved to have done that in 2021, and we'd initially kind of penciled that in, but it's probably not going to happen next year unless there are major developments on the pandemic front. So hopefully 2022. I was
going to say, hopefully that's something we'll be able to talk about coming up on our sixth anniversary.
Yes. So you never know. It might still happen. It might be towards the back end of 2021, but that's definitely something that we're kind of going to be keeping an eye out for the opportunity opening up for us to be able to hit the road and do kind of a membership road show. I would love to do that because we love meeting up with our members. You know, it's one of the great things about the success we've been able to achieve with the membership is that it affords us the time and the resources to come to you guys, right? And, you know, to come and grab a deep dish pizza in Chicago or a Philly cheesesteak with our members. Notice how all my plans revolve around food. We are going to Philadelphia. Like, we do this road trip. We're going to Philly because I want a cheesesteak. I want a turkey sandwich from the marketplace that I got. It's the best turkey sandwich ever. The Philly cheesesteak, it's incredible. So anyway, hopefully that will happen. And if it hasn't already happened by next year's anniversary episode, then we'll at least hopefully have some plans for when that might happen. And that's it. That is the last 12 months of Membership Academy. Hopefully you've enjoyed our little trip through what has been an eventful, turbulent year where not everything has gone as planned. And certainly we are far from the only people who have experienced that. But we've got lots of exciting stuff on the horizon. We've been able to pick back up from the rockier start to the year, and we've been able to help other people to do that. And we're really looking forward to the next 12 months. Again, like we said before, just getting back to the basics of things, and being able to just fully concentrate on the core of the academy. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it is, definitely. And also that next level of the business growth, and actually learning to kind of, it's a bit cliche these days, but step more into the kind of CEO role and having that team and things, as opposed to it just being mostly down to the two of us. Yeah,
and I would say we've certainly drifted in the last couple of years a little more into working in the business than working on the business. So getting that balance back again is going to be really cool. And I'm really excited for the new staff that we're bringing on board. I can't wait. I nearly said her name. but we can't say who we've hired. But I can't wait for her to come on board.
We can say though that we've accidentally ended up so far with a local team to us.
we keep like seeking to recruit people for remote working positions, and then accidentally hiring people who are really local to us. Like totally not intentional, but we just keep building this really local team, which is
it's nice.
It's nice, but it's also quite ironic and quite funny. So that is it. That's 12 months of the Academy. Our little look back on year five of Membership Academy. Do you feel old?
I really do.
I do. It feels, on the one hand, I can't really wrap my head around the fact it's been 5 years, but on the other, it feels like we've been doing this forever.
It really does. It really does. It's hard to remember life before the Membership Guys.
Yeah, it's nuts. So that is our little trip down memory lane. I think it's good we end things there before we start getting a little too much into the existential crisis of how old we are and the ever ebbing away sands of time. So next week it'll be back to business as usual here on the Membership Guys podcast. We've got another fantastic dose of proven practical tips and advice for growing your membership. I want to say big thank you to the one and only Callie Willows for joining me for this anniversary special.
Thank you for letting me.
Yes, it's the yearly cameo, because you're getting too big for your britches.
Just too popular?
You are with your Behind the Membership podcast. You've gone a little bit Hollywood. I've got to be honest. So I've got to limit how much we get you on the show. Thanks so much for listening. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you've gained some inspiration, some insight, and if nothing else, you found it entertaining. I'll be back again next week with another installment of the Membership Guys podcast.